The next thing, this is kind of, since we've got some people that are new into, whoops. I've got this is a little video that's actually off of can everybody see good? We can turn down the lights a little bit. And
that makes your time on the water more productive. Unlike typical sonar, which looks straight down below the boat, side imaging sonar uses a razor-thin beam that projects up to 240 feet to both sides of the boat for 480 feet of coverage across the bottom.
yes.
Though they look like photos, these are sonar images and are not dependent on light. Darkness, or even mud and silt will not interfere with side imaging. Natural structure, submerged wreckage, boats, automobiles, and even schools of bait fish show up in Humminbird side imaging sonar returns. In addition, you can run your Humminbird in fresh or salt water in depths as shallow as 2 to 3 feet. The image generated by Humminbird side imaging may look daunting at first, but by understanding a few simple principles, you'll quickly grasp everything this powerful tool is showing you. Unlike traditional sonar, side imaging moves from top to bottom instead of right to left. The most recent images will be at the top of the screen, with your history moving towards the bottom. Your boat location is top center of the image. Let's focus on the water column. To give you a better idea of what's going on with the Humminbird side imaging screen, we're going to fold the image down the middle. Now we can clearly identify the water column directly below the boat. This wide dark colored band is the water between the surface and the bottom. Any activity in this area took place in the water column directly underneath your boat. The gradual changes in width of this band will give you an image of the bottom profile as well. Next, we'll again fold the screen where the water column meets the bottom. At this point, the sonar is identifying structure to the left and right of your boat. Rising and falling terrain, rocks, timber, and man-made structure will all be visible along the bottom in picture-like detail. This simple 3D visualization makes the Humminbird side imaging screen incredibly easy to understand. Now let's take a closer look at what appears on the screen. Flat-bottom terrain will appear as a neutral shade of blue. Descending terrain appears as a darker shade of blue, while terrain rising from the bottom will appear in a whiter shade of blue. One of the easiest ways to identify structure with Humminbird side imaging is to look for shadows. Objects standing off the bottom typically appear as a bright spot immediately adjacent to a dark sonar shadow. These shadows are caused by the object reflecting the sonar energy and often tell you more about the height and shape of an object than the primary sonar reflection. Finally, Humminbird side imaging also shows fish. Schools of bait fish will appear as a cloud or cluster of small white dots. Larger individual fish show up as small white lines or streaks on the screen. There are many variables that determine how well fish show up on side imaging. Some of these variables are range, depth of water, and how far away the fish are from the boat. Also, fish may be behind structure, and this will hide the fish from the sonar. One tip to increase the visibility of fish on the screen is to set the sharpness located under the SI enhancement setting to high. This feature distinguishes fish from the surrounding black background. Each angler should determine which setting works best for them.
Does everybody kind of understand how, that kind of helps understand how the screen's scrolling, how we're going to develop images? Because I've run into some other presentations in the past and the guys didn't understand what was, we're showing a screen capture, which is basically just like taking a picture with your camera of that thing, and as that image is drawn, and that's one of the things, that width of coverage is your important part in is looking at purchasing a unit. The wider it is, if you set it the same area of coverage from a 5-inch unit to the 1198, every one of those steps in between is going to make that same structure a larger piece. For example, if the stump was a 1/2 inch big at 50 foot, at 100 foot, At 100 foot, it's only going to be a 1/4 inch big. At 200 foot, it's going to be 1/8 of an inch big. On, say, a 998, you go down to a 798, which is almost half screen of a 998. So you're going to take that 50 to 25 for that half-inch size. You'd have to be at 25-foot area coverage to get those same relationships, or at 50 foot of coverage instead of half, it's only going to be a 1/4. So it's the bigger the piece is, the easier it's going to be able to distinguish. I've actually brought, this is a couple of those images like they had that are folded. You can fold this. There's some interesting stuff. Look at one side, like this side. We don't see much in the water column, but you see a tree on that side. You know what that tells me? If this is the top of the image, we can see it on this side, but we didn't see it on this side.
You can fish on that side.
The tree was on, when the transducer went over the top, it was on the right-hand side of the transducer. It wasn't on the left-hand side. So now, down imaging 2D sonar, I can't tell you which direction that it came from underneath the boat. Side imaging, I can tell you if that return was from the right side or the left side. And if you look in these water columns, this is another one that's got a bridge on it. You can see the bridge pilings. There's one on the right side, one on the left side. So now I can tell you exactly where that piece of structure is, that fish is. Yes?
As far as the enhancing to see the actual fish and whatnot, do you have to tone down the intensity then to kind of make the background a little bit more dark?
No.
So those fish
No.
pop up more? Or do you still keep
What I recommend, and I'll go through on some of this in the settings, but when you scan across something, once you collect that data on the screen, hit your 4-way cursor button up there in the right corner. You hit that button, it freezes the screen. What you can do then, your sensitivity control is independent of what that data. The data that you collected is basically can be adjusted. You can adjust the sensitivity. You can adjust those SI enhanced features. And I've got some images in here that show that. But if you see something, you say, man, that looks awful good, or that tree didn't come out real good, hit the 4-way cursor, go down, hit your menu button. Once comes your express menu, and that's where sensitivity and side imaging enhanced are going to be under that. You can come down there and crank up your sensitivity, and that's a good way to start the day, is try to get that balance, because depth of water you're in can change the way things look because of the amount of screen you got.
The shallower you get, that brighter.
You get in mud versus rocky bottom. So if you go to a place like Lake the Ozarks that's got mud and got rocks, I'm constantly hitting buttons and trying to balance that screen to get that hard, soft return.
So on a frozen picture, you can actually manipulate the picture itself?
Yes.
So you can see more detail even though the
You
boat's
can-
way beyond it.
The boat's going to, it's still going to keep traveling. You can save a waypoint still from, you can freeze that
If I
image.
liked it, I could save it as a waypoint and come back to it.
What you can do is you can freeze that screen, you can drive the rest of the day, and you can still go mark waypoints on it. As long as you don't hit exit and unfreeze the screen. Now that's one of the things, you can use Sonar Recordings in the unit, you can put an SD card in, go into your picture and video screen, hit your menu button once, and it'll start doing a recording. You can save, I don't recommend saving the whole day, without starting and stopping. What I like to do, come in, fish this bay, I'll start the recording here when I get done, and I'm gonna travel down the lake, I'll turn it off, run down the lake, when I get to the next spot, I'll start it again. But it's amazing the stuff that you miss. Even though you're watching it, you may miss stuff that shows up on that screen. You can tweak the sensitivity, you can change the chart speed. When you play back a recording, you can do the side imaging enhance, you can do all this stuff at home where you've got time. You can say, hey, look at this great brush pile, look at this rock pile, the stuff you didn't find, and you can save those waypoints if you play it back in the unit, the same as you were on the water. You can do the same thing as, you can capture screen captures out of that if you want to. It'll make the waypoints for it. But I definitely, a lot of times if I see something, some of these images, I'll guarantee you to get pretty images, I stop the screen and I play the sensitivity up, play it down to try to get the right picture to make it look the prettiest. Those ones in the video is a little lake that I've got that I go out and it's got all kinds of interesting terrain in it. And I've sent those in, but it's a bunch of old erosion. And a lot of times you don't have to do anything once you get it set. I'm gonna tell you, my basic setting started, factory default is 10 on sensitivity, 8 to 12. Harder the bottom, the lower the setting, softer the bottom, the higher the setting.